past. I remember when Xerox was found to have misstated their earnings. And there was a fines for for Xerox. And the CEO was fined. Of course, the insurance company, the company paid the fine, as was part of the contract. It's kind of weird because the Attorney General, in order to protect the shareholders, fined the CEO and wound up costing the shareholders more money because the shareholders ultimately had to pay that fine for the CEO. But I remember Vernon Jordan was on the board of directors of Xerox at the time, and he was also on the board of directors of 13 other boards at that time, in addition to being a full-time lawyer in Washington, as well as, you know, hobnobbing with Clinton, trying to keep him out of trouble and stuff like that. How can a guy possibly provide oversight for 13 boards? I mean, think about that for a second. How would you know what you're really doing if you were a member of I would think it would be a very significant thing to just be on one board, much less 13. But he was on 13 boards, and nobody seemed to mind that he was on 13 boards. That's changed. Let's talk a little bit about this stakeholder model. I want to look at this issue of business's responsibility to society. And in order to do this, I'm going to begin by looking at it from the point of view of Milton Friedman, who was a free market economist. Now, I'm going to spend some time on that, and then I'm going to look at the alternative view, which is provided by Edward Freeman. It sounds like Freeman. They're two different people, Freeman. And he's going to talk about the stakeholder theory. And then I've got something I found that somebody wrote about 100 years ago, which I thought you'd be interested in. All right, let's talk about Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman is quite clear. When it comes to business's responsibility to society, it is pure and simple to increase profits. Now, I want to make something clear. Milton Friedman is not saying that he doesn't care about ethics. What he's saying is he cares deeply about ethics. And this is the ethical choice. Anything other than this is unethical. So he's not going to yield the high moral ground to anyone here. He's going to say, I am concerned most of all that business does what it's supposed to do. And what it's supposed to do is to increase its profits. Now, businesses, of course, don't really have responsibility. People have responsibility. But what he's really saying is that it's the executives, CEO, who is going to ultimately have to take as his responsibility, her responsibility, increasing profits. Because that's what they're paid to do. Now, if he wants to be a good citizen, contribute to some charity or pay employees more money than he would need to, or any of these things, fine. Please, go do that. But do it with your own money. Don't do it with somebody else's money. Because you are a steward. You're a steward of somebody else's money. And so you have a responsibility to use their money the way they want you to use it, not the way you want to use it. So, using our rational model of good, right, and just, Friedman is arguing that increasing profits is good, right, and just. It's right because it respects the rights of the owners, the property rights. It is their property, and if you don't do what they want you to do, you are denying them their rights, stealing their money. It's also the good thing to do, because business has to be able to do what business does best. Business doesn't do well social goals. That's not what businesses are set up to do. They make shoes, or they, give mortgages, or they write software, whatever they do. They don't do social programs. There is someone who is good, however, at doing social programs, and that's your government. Your government is chosen by you to solve the society's problems. You chose them. If you don't like what they're doing, by the way, you can make a different choice, but nevertheless, you chose them, and they have the power to levy taxes, which the business should pay, and then use those taxes to solve these problems. So let the business make its money, pay the taxes to your government, and your government will solve the problem. It's stupid to let the business try to solve these problems. They're not good at solving those kinds of problems. And it's also, in a sense, fair because he's in a contract with the owners, with the board, and if he doesn't do what he's told, he'll get fired. So, there's a contract. So good, right, just. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, in the long run, it does make sense for business to improve the environment it operates in. I mean, business could give money to schools so that those children would learn better, and then when it came time to hire employees, they'd have more educated children to hire, or more educated employees to hire. Okay, fine. Nothing wrong with that. Makes perfect sense. Friedman says do that if that's true. But don't be a hypocrite. I mean, at least acknowledge that what you're doing is trying to increase profits in the long run, if you will. That's okay. But don't be a hypocrite and say that that's not your goal. That is your goal. That is your goal. So the market mechanism is good, right, and just, and we should simply allow business to do what business does. It's not just good for the business, it's good for all of us. It is the ethical thing to do. All right.